Hey guys, my name is Miska and welcome to HitScan. This is gonna be a bit of a hybrid video, starting with some things around the meta and the tanks, and then going into some new stuff towards the end. Should be pretty fun actually. Let's begin though with talking tanks and the meta, and I'm gonna start from the tank perspective since I'm a tank player myself. I played a few hours today, and I've sort of monitored games and pick rates over the past few days, along with just what other Grandmaster and top 500 players have to say about mainly the tanks, and then I'll lead into support and DPS from that. Let's begin though with talking about the tank duos. The first one I want to highlight is Arisa and Reinhardt. This is by far the one I've seen played the most and that people call for being played the most as well. Now bear in mind, my games are between 3.7k and 3.2k average. I've noticed that I've been filling in some lower rated games that are up to like about 400 or 500 SR below my SR, which has kind of allowed me to see a bit more of the diamond side as well. And even there, I feel like Arisa and Reinhardt seems like a pretty comfortable tank duo for quite a few people. It's obviously because you pair two big barriers with each other, making for just a lot of barrier health, which is kind of the point of that duo, and that's kind of it really. There's not much more to it. But I do want to highlight that with this combo, I genuinely feel like it's actually stronger on attack, which might seem weird to some of you at first. Personally, I feel like it feels weird, but because how you can get a halt and pull with Arisa into a Reinhardt charge combo on attack quite a bit easier, you can sort of set yourself up in easier ways. It feels better on attack in my opinion. You also don't have the problem of the Arisa putting down a shield and then Reinhardt having an awkward time playing around it, as you can push much more effectively by switching out the barriers. And since the Arisa barrier dies fairly quickly anyway, this actually makes more sense on attack from what I've been experiencing in my games. Next up, I want to talk about Hog and Arisa, because that is the next tank duo that I personally have enjoyed and felt like is the most useful right now. And I'm gonna be honest here, part of it is because it is just more fun, so I feel like I probably try harder. But I think that's pretty important in Overwatch too. And with the barrier breaking potential that duo has as well, it feels very good to play that with your full team, as you can work together to break barriers in a very fast and sort of satisfying way, and then incorporate some nice halt and hook combos of course. So really recommend picking that up. I do think that this might not work as well on a sort of Grandmaster level, where people are a bit better at maybe playing Arisa Rein and even incorporating a character like Sigma. I'll get to that in a bit. But Arisa Hog I think will work in most ranks, at least sort of Plat, Diamond, Master games, no doubt. So long as you just have a tiny bit of communication, you'll get there pretty fast, and yeah, it just doesn't require a lot of comms and it's very fun to play. Next up, Sigma, I think is a character that is just really not doing well if you look at sort of 95% of games right now. The character is just getting absolutely trashed by all the damage that's being thrown on his now pretty shit barrier, if I'm gonna be completely honest. Out of all the games I've played today as well, I just don't really feel threatened by Sigma almost ever. The character just doesn't seem that scary anymore, and you go through his barrier incredibly fast with Hog Arisa as well. Since the shield was nerfed and the kinetic grasp got some more focus on it, that means that Roadhog is pretty strong against Sigma, since you break the barrier fairly fast, and then the kinetic grasp doesn't allow you to dodge that hook anymore like it used to about 2 months ago. So it's kind of a stacked buff and nerf there on Sigma that's kind of allowed Roadhog to do even better against the character. Now to the sad part about the sort of tank duos, and I just genuinely feel like D.Va, Winston, I've not had issues against those characters at all. I played against all of them, though only D.Va once actually, so don't take that too strongly from me. Either way though, Arisa and Reinhardt just don't seem to really budge from these other characters. I think probably Ball on some maps, but it really depends on where and how good you are with Hammond to really make that work. It's gonna be difficult, that's for sure. Finally, I wanted to talk Rein Zarya for the tank duos, since that's obviously one that's been talked about a lot leading up to this, due to Zarya changes and of course Reinhardt just becoming the most popular hero in the game right now actually. It might make a lot of sense to pair these two together, and I think it is more fun than playing, say, Arisa Rein. But even here, it just feels like Reinhardt's barrier now can get spammed down if the enemy team are playing, say, Arisa Hog at a lot of ranks. But if you have a Reinhardt on both sides and one has an Arisa and one has a Zarya with them, I still feel like Arisa Rein just comes out on top a little bit. But this really comes down to how good you are on those characters and what sort of team you have. I feel like that matters more in matchmaking, and if you get that part down, then you can definitely make both of these duos work. Alright, that's the tanks out of the way. To pair with these, as I've already touched on, barrier breaking is still very, very important. And I love having a Zenyatta and a Baptiste on my team. It feels great to be able to burn barriers even faster, and especially if you're comboing like a Bongo and a Baptiste field, you just shred the enemy team, and it's very satisfying to get those combos that previously maybe weren't as prominent in Overwatch, meaning the past sort of couple of years at least, or even ever since Baptiste came out, we haven't gotten to see the effectiveness of the character to the point where he is at right now, and it's very, very fun to play that. So yeah, if you're running like a Hog Arisa with a Baptiste and Zen, that can be a bit scary, but Arisa Rein and then running the Baptiste and Zenyatta is, I think, more safe and just does very well in most scenarios. Additionally, Mei feels incredibly strong and just ridiculously broken right now. She's good against almost every comp that I've mentioned when it comes to the tank duos. Of course, there was that exploit, which was actually fixed. I'll get to that in a bit. But in terms of DPS, Mei almost feels like a must pick right now, as the character just does quite a bit of damage, is very annoying. Blizzard is very strong right now, especially with D.Va sort of out of the picture. I'm not quite sure what you adjust there, but I think that is the next step in this whole sort of balance saga that Blizzard are going through right now, where the first step towards addressing main balance issues in Overwatch were the tanks and the barriers, and now that that feels kinda done, I think you can work a bit more with a character like Mei and potentially spice up the tank lineup or the way that you play tanks in some other way to allow characters like Winston and D.Va to come in as well. That's essentially all I have to say about the patch though. I don't really know enough to talk more about how the various DPS characters feel right now, as much as I'd like to do that, but what I can say is that Mei and Reaper, still pretty good characters, but you just gotta look out for what else is happening in your game and what you want to counter. Moving on though to that Mei exploit that I briefly mentioned, it's actually been addressed last night. There was a post, or maybe even during the day, by Bill Warnock on Reddit, which just briefly mentioned that we're working on a fix, and then later on said that the fix should now be implemented, or at least be coming out in the next few hours. And indeed, that exploit has been fixed now, so no more Reinhardts flying around in your game. It was a little bit weird to see a big exploit like that make it through, but I imagine someone maybe even knew about it on the PTR, because it very quickly started getting abused in actual ranked. But yeah, it's gone now, so that's history. No need to worry about that any further. Big congratulations to Custa and Jake, previously Overwatch League players who have retired as players but are now doing sort of analysis work and desk work for the Overwatch League instead. And yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see former pros actually be on that panel, as we'll get much more of an insight into the players' sort of way of thinking and everyday stuff as well, going into next year's Overwatch League with a lot of traveling and a lot of different locations around the world. I think that will put quite a challenge on a lot of the players, and hopefully Jake and Custa will be able to bring some insight into what that can be like from the travel that they've done with their teams here and there. But either way, I'm just really happy to see Overwatch League get those guys on board there, because I think they're great in interviews, and I was a bit worried there that Custa was just not gonna do any more Overwatch stuff for a bit when he at first announced his sort of retirement on Twitter. Finally, I just wanted to show off this little book cover. This is the Arisa book, or whatever you want to call it, the Hero of Numbani, which is an Arisa and Effie focused Overwatch lore book, I guess you could call it. It's a novel that's on Amazon right now. I'll maybe include a link, but honestly, there's just not much more info about it right now. I think it's coming out very soon though. But yeah, it's called The Hero of Numbani. You can just give that a Google and then it'll show up. Always nice to see some more lore stuff like this be announced and come out. But at the end of the day, Overwatch 2 is going to be the main lore chunk, and that's quite a bit away still. Alright, that's all for this video. Thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.